If you're experiencing sexual issues and need a physical therapy consultation or appointment, reach out to Eve and make an appointment on pleaseme.online. This podcast is intended for mature audiences.
Fans of roleplay, I highly encourage you to check out this podcast. So we've navigated what it might look like if we hooked up after one of my shows, and figuring out what our boundaries and barriers were. And that was really fun to do that on the fly like that.
That was really fun. And I want to do that more because I feel like people really, I'm constantly talking about communication and relationships and how we need to tell our partners what our needs are, what our wants are, what our desires are, what feels good, a little to the left, a little to the right, slow down, speed up, all of those things, right? And, a lot of times people it's like their lips are sealed, and they can't communicate in the spur of the moment.
Eve is a licensed sexual health physical therapist on a mission to destigmatize conversations about sex. Please sit back and surrender to the pleasure of Please Me.
Hello, and welcome to Please Me, the podcast that aims to destigmatize conversations about sex and sexual health by turning the sheets into our classroom. Today, I am so excited to welcome Fancy Feast to the show. He is a writer, a burlesque performer, and a sex educator, and she has been skirting around on the margins of respectability where only the brave dare to go. And I have to say that you have come to the right place because you are here at home on Please Me. So welcome to Please Me, Fancy Feast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited that you're here. And I was telling you earlier that I went to a burlesque show many years ago. When I was going for my bachelorette party, my friend took me to a burlesque show in New York City, and I remember the performances were so amazing. And I just thought it was such an incredible art form, and I'm so curious to know about your show.
Oh my goodness. Well, my shows look like a lot of different things because in New York City, burlesque performers are independent contractors. So we're all sort of booked separately and organized by different producers. So every night is going to be different depending on who is on the lineup, which is one of my favorite things about it. So the burlesque that I tend to do veers a little bit away from what we think of as classic burlesque. So not so much in the big feather fans and the fancy gowns and things like that. I'm more interested in the performance art kind of side of things and into pushing buttons and doing sort of funny narrative kind of work.
I love that. And I do remember that each person that performed was so different from the next. And, some of them were hilarious, some of them were just super artistic. I remember there was a ballet dancer that was dancing on point, but she did like a striptease as she was like dancing on point, which is incredible. And she was a beautiful ballet dancer. There was another hula hoop lady who like hula hoops like 100 hula hoops at once. And I was like, wow, it was incredible, and it just was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. So tell me what, your performance is like.
First of all, I think I know who you're talking about based on the acts that you're describing. I'm like, oh, these are my friends.
Oh my gosh, this is so long ago, but I mean, yeah, I'm sure that these women could still be performing,
Yes, and veterans of the scene. In terms of my own performance work, I went to film school, and the work that I did in the editing bay in film school has really informed a lot of my burlesque performance.
Okay.
So I tend to do a lot of my own audio editing, and I use the sort of genre convention of burlesque to subvert audience expectations. So I have an act, for example, where my track keeps starting and stopping. And at first, it's going to seem like people get nervous for me and they worry, and I have to like assure them that everything's going to be okay. And then the track keeps switching. And so I have to keep switching up my movement and my vibe. And then it ends up just like shifting into a complete, like absurd, ridiculous sort of place where finally it's revealed that this was my intention all along. But yeah, so that's I like the sort of conceptual stuff because I think New Yorkers see a lot and get kind of jaded by just sort of standard striptease. So I try to be a little bit shocking.
I love that. It sounds really funny too. At first, very concerning as an audience member, like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And then, just funny and interactive. And that's what I really love about burlesque too. Everybody was just so interactive. And I love the diversity, because it's so different than going to, say a strip club, right? Where everybody's a man in there. There were so many women enjoying burlesque, which I thought was really cool. And there were plenty of men in there too. It was a great combination of everybody, and the shows are super entertaining and fun. So I love that you do that. And I want to know more about your journey as a writer too, because you have many publications. Which publication are you the most proud of?
My goodness. In terms of essays or including my book?
Well, let's talk about your book too, for sure. Let's start with that.
Okay, great. Because in terms of, it's the biggest thing I've ever made, the longest thing I've ever done. I like essays because it's sort of a nice bite-sized format. The idea of like a whole book was something I was really unsure that I could do, and then I was very happy to be doing it. So my goal, can I say adult language on this
As
podcast?
whatever you want to say. Yes.
Appreciate it. So right, the thing I tell people is that I want to be the Anthony Bourdain of taking my tits out. So my book is a collection of nonfiction essays about New York City nightlife, about working in the sex industry in a variety of different roles. And the sort of thesis of it is that when I'm on stage taking off my clothes, I am not revealing myself to the audience. The audience is revealing themselves to me because of their preconceived notions, because of the way that they project onto me from the information that I hear. Like my act is something that I've worked on, that I've studied, that I have intention behind, and the audience's reaction is spontaneous. And because of that, it tells me so much about where we're at culturally in terms of our conversations about sex and bodies and culture. And so that's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I wrote about.
Amazing. And I love that you talk about, you know, what society is projecting onto you, right? And that is what we get constantly from society, right? The societal norms that are constantly being, pushed down our throats, really, by our families and by our friends and by television and by movies and by pretty much everything, right? And so we really have to try and figure out what what's best for us and tease out what's not best for us, So what sort of societal norms have you tossed out the window? And I'm always talking about, myself being a relationship anarchist and throwing the old relationship styles out the window. I'm just curious to know if you feel that way about certain things.
Absolutely. I think the big one for me as a performer is that I'm fat, and so people don't often see fat people doing striptease performance or fat people revealing their bodies without a sense of shame. And so that can be quite shocking to people. It's never like the text of my act. I don't make work specifically about it, but just being present and not apologizing and taking up space and being entertaining is very transgressive to a lot of people. And so I end up hearing like, oh, wow, you're so brave, or whatever the thing is, or it's like, this is my job. Like, it's not bravery. It's the thing I like to do the most. But I come up against that time and again. That tends to be the most common reaction I get. And then beyond that, yes, in my personal life, I am a non-monogamous person. And I think that also you end up hearing a lot from people about that. Being queer, one also hears a lot of sort of, you have to break through a lot of cultural barriers just to sort of exist comfortably in your life. So yeah, it's an everyday practice.
I love that. There's like so many norms you're throwing out the window, right? And there's like many different layers of it. And I love how you have such, you are very body positive and you love your body as it is. And I always think that that is so important to hear from all different people, in all different sizes, because we all deserve love and we all deserve pleasure, no matter what, group of people we come from, right? And so I love that. And you're right. It's not bravery because this is what you do. But the first time you had to have had some, bravery to get up there on that on the stage that first time. How was that experience? Do you remember that?
I do remember it. It was so nerve-wracking. My first burlesque performance was sort of it was a bit of it was like a performer had dropped out, and so the producer needed somebody to step in. And so it was a very sort of showbiz moment where they're like, "Hey kid, can you put them together?" And so that was the sort of like cosmic showbiz moment. I was so nervous that I was not able to eat the whole day, and I was like dry heaving and stuff like that.
Wow.
So nervous. But
Wow.
but I made it through. It's always so the worst is like right before you go on stage, and that still happens. I get nervous every time. But that's good. I think I nowadays I feel like that's an indication that I still really care about this work.
Absolutely. The nerves do tell you that you do care about what you're doing. That's so true. And, in anything in life, any difficult thing that you need to do, there's always, that feeling in the pit of your stomach, the first time you do it. But, the more you get out there and you push yourself through that fear, and through that nervousness into whatever you're trying to achieve, each time after that, it just gets so much easier. And I'm always talking about communication in relationship. And I'm not even talking about long-term relationships. It could be a hookup. You know what I mean? Like a relationship as in you're relating to another person and
Yeah.
how you have conversations with people. And, a lot of times this is very difficult for people to do, but the more you practice, the easier it gets each time. So, I'm always a big advocate for, telling people what you like, what you want, sharing your passions, your desires, your needs, so that we could all get our needs met.
Thank you for saying that. I feel like so I used to work at a sex toy store. I did retail for 7 years.
Okay.
Um, and one of the things that I would talk to people about over and over again was the importance of communication. And it was like trying to force feed people medicine. I'm so frustrated by it because they wanted things to just happen spontaneously without ever having to sort of negotiate them. And particularly in casual hookup situations, that there was this sense of like, oh, well, if this isn't my partner, why would I communicate? And it's like, oh my gosh, you don't know anything about each other. So in order to make sure you're having the experience you want to have, you have to talk about it. Of course you do.
I know. And a lot of times, we assume that our partners know exactly what they're doing. And I'm sorry, but if you're talking about a first time situation, you don't know if this person has good experience or a not so good experience. You don't know what they're, how they function. So really talking about everything is so important. And, I consider myself the face of safe sex. And so having that conversation about safety before you get into the bedroom and between the sheets is so key, because a
Yeah.
lot of times, people agree to like move on to the next thing, right? And they're like in the middle of, getting it on, and where's the condom? Oh, you don't have one? Oh, well, you should have one. Why don't you have one?
Right.
And
I
then
thought you were going to bring one. I thought you were.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's like so many things, that could go wrong when you're not having conversations and putting yourself at risk and unneeded risk by not opening your mouth. So I think it's so, so key.
Yes. And I think I'm so glad that your podcast exists because people need to hear that. They need framework for it because we tell people to communicate, but then we don't sort of model that. And so people are just trying to, build the plane in the air as they're flying or something. And it's like, no, there are ways to make this easier or to just sort of work through awkwardness or self-consciousness. I think that that's an important part of being a sexual adult.
I agree. I so agree. And the fact that you just brought this up makes me think about something that I think would be really fun. Do you want to try modeling a conversation about us hooking up?
Oh my God, let's do it.
Okay, so I am at your burlesque show and I just saw you perform and you just came off the stage and you walked over to the bar and I'm walking up to you. And I'm going to come up to you and talk to you now about how amazing your performance was. Oh my God, you are so incredibly sexy. I love the way that your body moves. I love your voluptuous figure. And I'm just curious, do you, have a partner?
I have several. How about you?
Well, that is a nice answer, and I have to concur. However, however, I am ethically non-monogamous, and I think you're beautiful, and I really would love to talk to you more if that would be something that you would be open to.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. What did you have in mind?
Well, I don't know. After this, I have a hotel room down the road, and I'm going to get some drinks at the hotel bar. And I was wondering if you would like to join me.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to join you. I do want to let you know when I come off the stage after a show, I'm often like a little bit tired. So if you don't mind, like one drink and then a pillow princess, I'm yours. I'm happy to be.
I love it. I love it. And I need the definition of what you consider a pillow princess.
Absolutely. So for me, that's going to mean I might be more into receiving tonight. That might mean, I don't know if you're down for some like massage or, a shower, but that's something sort of soothing, relaxing rather than something more intense.
I love sensual play, and I think that that would be a lot of fun. And I'm just curious, do you do anything in terms of protection for oral sex? Because I do like to use protective.
Absolutely. Yeah. Love a saran wrap moment. Happy to turn a condom into a dental dam. It's like a fun trick. But yeah, I love barriers. I also have black latex gloves, and that goes with every outfit. So if you want to use that as well, that's another barrier that I like to use.
Amazing black latex gloves. That sounds really hot. Can't wait to find some places for those.
I'm sure we could be creative.
So these are the types of conversations that people need to be flirting through, right? When they're flirting with their partner, to make sure that they're getting, their needs met and taking care of their safety at the same time. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And I really like the way that you framed it, the idea of stating what your needs, your preferences were first. So as opposed to saying like, hey, do you use condoms? Or hey, do you use dental dams? To say like, this is what I use, this is what I like. And to just own that and not apologize for it or not wait for the other person to set the tone. I think that is a really wonderful key bit that I'm pulling out from that.
Thank you so much. And, it's interesting what you said about the saran wrap and the, changing the condom into a dental dam, right? And I have an invention that I think is going to change the way that we have sex. I really do. And it's in this arena. So, this would be something that would be key to bring up at that time too. And I use it all the time and it works really, really amazing. So I can't wait to, tell people more about that in the future.
Oh my God. I mean, that is the most tantalizing thing to say that you're an inventor, that you have something in mind. I'm like, I want to know.
I know. I'm so excited to share with everybody, and I will be when the time is right. But absolutely, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for role playing with me. That was just something that like occurred to me in the middle of our conversation.
Who's looking for a sexy date? STC.com is the premier ethically non-monogamous dating site that also houses a wealth of information regarding sexuality and sexual health. Join the Please Me Health Collective on STC.com and listen to Eve's free live webinars. Use code 37340 for a free trial membership.
So you mentioned earlier that your relationship style is non-monogamous. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
just tell me about your relationship style. I'd love to know because I feel like I talk about a lot about monogamy and ethical non-monogamy on the show. And, there are so many different options out there.
There are so many different options. And I think it's a matter of figuring out what works best for you. And I've been in sort of a trial and error phase a little bit. I had assumed for a long time that solo poly was going to be sort of the right framework for me. So really centering my own life at the center of what my relationships look like, and then sort of having satellite out from that. And then I found myself in a relationship dynamic that was more deeply partnered than that, and where I was a hinge. So where I had two partners who I was quite committed to, who were not dating one another. And what I discovered is that between my day job, my artistic practice, my freelancing work, and then trying to maintain two really um, committed, intense, passionate relationships. I was like, oh, that's capacity. That's beyond capacity. Um, and so I wasn't able to give to any of those arenas in my life as much as I would have wanted to. So I pulled back on that. So the word that I use that I'm trying out nowadays is non-monogamous, with the idea that I would like to have deep partnership, but I think, my heart is boundless, my love is infinite, my time is so limited, and I think I can develop one really close partnership with somebody, and then we can both like fuck a bunch of people and have fun.
I love the openness of your response because you're absolutely right. I mean, relationships take time, right? And, in a perfect world, we have time for, love in every direction, right? But the fact is that there's only 24 hours in the day and you have to fit in everything else that life involves, right? So absolutely. And I think that, one thing about relationships is that, your style can always change. You can be, you know, poly one, for a period of your life, and then you can, switch to something else. And whatever that may be, everything, all of it is acceptable. And that's what I try to, talk about because, monogamy is not the only acceptable way to be. And yes, it's an acceptable way to be if that's what you choose, but there are so many other options out there. And so I like to talk about the quote unquote modern relationship. And that just means that you are open to other outside of the box thinking in terms of relationship.
I think that's so meaningful, right? That as long as one is not committed to sort of foreclosure, the idea that like, oh, okay, the thing I'm picking now is the thing that will work for me for the rest of my life. I don't think that's a reasonable way to treat any aspect of existence. So things are always in flux. So as long as people are doing what's right for them in the moment while remaining open to the long-term patterns of change in their lives, I think that's great.
Absolutely, because the bottom line is that we're constantly changing.
Yeah.
So whether you're married or not married, no matter what, even if you are married, the two people that are in that partnership are constantly changing. And if you're not constantly trying to keep that connection alive, then you're going to have issues. And, the divorce rate is 50% among first marriages, and it goes up and up and up for second and third and fourth marriages. So absolutely always realizing that whatever kind of relationship you are in, you have to work at it in order to have happy partners, however many partners there are in the relationship, right?
Definitely. And I think the divorce rate piece is not necessarily like some people treat that as a sign of like, our society is falling apart. And I don't think it's that. We
No.
live longer. We women can have bank accounts, and people are figuring out different ways of making meaning in their lives. And I think the idea of choosing something, parting and choosing something that is more authentic is as healthy as any other choice, like a choice to stay, for example.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. I am curious about this Kirkus Star Award that you won and you received for writing about butthole. I would love to know about this article or whatever it was that you were writing about where you received this award for talking about butthole.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. So
I too.
the Kirkus people are going to be delighted, I'm sure. A Kirkus Star is a sort of coveted literary achievement this was in relationship to my book. So there are a few different literary review publications where they sort of make or break whether or not your book is going to be received as one to look out for or one to skip. And the Kirkus Review, they have sort of the higher standards. They're seen as like very picky in the industry. And one of my sort of preoccupations is how conversations that feel intimate or that are obscene or that are sort of challenging can make their way into more sort of mainstream places or respectable places or academic places. So sort of transporting through the like highbrow and lowbrow. And so that was part of my intention in writing the book. But it was scary to have these like very frank, funny, whatever, like these very salt of the earth conversations about sexuality and then presented to the literary world, which is more prudish, certainly, than nightlife.
Right.
And so to have the sort of foremost literary review publication honor my book with a star was an indication that like the message is being received by that group of people. And that meant the world to me. Yeah, I was definitely like happy crying when I saw that.
Yay, that's so exciting. That's amazing. And I'm just curious to know what in your book you were talking about when you referenced buttholes. Because we do talk about anal sex several times on the podcast. And I, love to talk about anal sex. I actually enjoy it. And it's something that should be tried at least once in your life, in my opinion.
I agree. It's like we only have this one life unless you believe in reincarnation. So it's like you may as well play with your ass or your friend's ass in this lifetime. Actually, come to think of it, I guess I get really existential when I think about anal sex because that's what I was writing about, the things that as a sex educator I will now know for the rest of my life. And so I was imagining being shaken awake in the middle of the night in some years in the future by somebody who is holding two different butt plugs and wants me to compare and contrast them. After so many years of selling sex toys, it's like that's something I can do out of a dead sleep. So I believe that was the part I was referencing.
Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
Anal beads or butt plug?
I'm a butt plug queen. I love a bead. I think it's really wonderful and interactive. But in terms of the functionality of having something that you can, I almost want to say set and forget, but it's like you don't forget it.
It takes up space.
It takes up space, right? But something you can wear.
Filling a void. It's filling a void.
Filling a void. Excellent to get prepped for other kinds of anal play, but really wonderful by itself. Yeah, a butt plug, something that you can wear and go to Whole Foods. I think it's nice. I like a butt plug.
Ah, I love that. Something that you can wear and go to Whole Foods.
Maybe you're in the market for some sexy toys to add some spice to the bedroom. Check out the Organic Lovin' link for the best online store for sex toys, lubes, and more.
And that leads me to my next question. Do you consider yourself a nudist? And I know that you did some work as a body double at the Metropolitan Opera. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I do not consider myself a nudist. I consider myself a clothes horse, actually. I love clothes. I think about fashion a lot. And my nudity is more of my career than it is my lifestyle.
Gotcha.
I enjoy being naked. I don't feel self-conscious about being naked. I like going to the Korean spa and being in the naked room with all the naked.
Me too. That's my favorite thing in the whole world.
Such a beautiful place. I was like, oh my God, it's very utopian. But no, it's not. It's not. I don't like walk around the house naked or anything like that, even though it's just me. I worked as a nude body double because it was really hard for the Metropolitan Opera to find somebody with my stature who was comfortable being nude on stage. And so they had to send out, a casting list far and wide until it reached me. And it was great. The Soprano has like a nude scene in a tower in hell. And I was like, perfect. That's where I belong, in a tower in hell. Yeah. So yeah, it's strange to me that my nudity has taken me to the most sort of valued cultural institutions or whatever in the state, in the country. Sure, we'll travel, have nudity, we'll travel.
And I definitely consider myself a nudist. I love going to the nude beach and, just walking around and having coffee, butt naked and just relaxing in the nude. So I love being naked, so I could totally relate, but performing naked, that's a whole nother story. So I would love to know what you really love to educate about in terms of, your sexual educating. I know that I personally, my biggest thing is I'm always talking about the orgasm gap and how we can close it one person at a time through education and awareness. And, and this podcast, I mean, I'm always talking about it. So curious to know what you'd like to educate about.
Ooh. So, okay. So I love that, the orgasm gap. I mean, I don't love the orgasm gap, but I love
Right.
educating about it.
Right.
Well, it's a couple of things. I really like my sort of current pet peeve, the thing that I can't stop talking about is this notion that women lose desire over time, and the sort of question of like, oh, well, why aren't women initiating sex? Why aren't women horny? And we're looking at it from such an individualistic standpoint. People will go into, okay, well, what's your hormonal profile? For example, it's like a very sort of medicalized conversation. And there's not a lot of curiosity about what this woman's like life looks like, what her desires are, and whether or not they've been fulfilled, what her role is within her partnership, and whether she is, continuing to, whether she has like an equal partnership, or whether she's in a maternalized role, or like doing all of the tasks for the household, and how that affects desire. So I think, or like what our culture says about women as they age and how that affects desire. So I think we need to have a much more integrated, holistic conversation about all of the things that impact desire, rather than just like, oh, it's menopause, like check, you're the cream. I think it's a much more complex topic than that. So that's something I'm really passionate about at the moment. But in general, when I'm on stage, when I'm hosting burlesque, I will open the floor to anonymous sex questions from the audience to keep me sharp. And because it's like, I'm going to be a street preacher about this. It's like, if the information is not going to be in our schools, if it's not going to happen within home, I'll try to fill in a little bit of that so that they can get it in the nightclub and take it home with them.
I love that. And, you do see a lot of bachelorettes, right? I mean, this is a perfect opportunity for them to learn a little nugget of information, because, they're about to enter into a relationship where they're going to be, sexually active with their partner, for however many years they're together, right? And hopefully happily sexually active, and unfortunately, a lot of times, relationships get really stale because people aren't having conversations, aren't trying new things, aren't, spicing it up in the bedroom. And so they end up getting bored and end up having, a decline in their sexuality and their sexual exploration, which is really not necessary if you, take precautions and have conversations, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Right. And I think the element that needs to be present in all of this is curiosity. That like, if we're staying curious, if we're not assuming that we know, or that like we had one conversation about what we want to do and then we'll do that forever. It's that same question about like foreclosure. For people who continue to sort of be active and interested in themselves, in their partners, in their own sexual responses, I think there's so much opportunity for longevity around keeping things feeling really spicy and fun.
Absolutely. And that brings me to my very last question, which I've been asking all of my season 3 guests, and I can't wait to hear your response. What tools do you take into the bedroom to spice things up? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical tool. It can be anything.
My initial response is my big fat mouth. You start talking, you keep talking. I think the years and years of having open and non-judgmental conversations about sex has brought me and the people that I have sex with to places that we never thought we would go. And it's been so wonderful and unexpected and fun. So being able to model that kind of openness and to receive other people's wishes and desires with enthusiasm, all of that kind of stuff. It's been years of training and, a lifelong commitment to being a slut, but it really comes in handy. And then like a waterproof blanket. It also has really helped.
That is a good one. And nobody has said that, but I have to say that is very important. And you should always have a waterproof, at least for me, I always have that like liner underneath my sheets.
What?
Just in case, because, things can get messy.
Definitely can. And I want to do it without having to worry about laundry the next day or something like that, or the wet spot. It's like I'd really rather just take care of the precaution that we can all have fun.
That's a good point. So put it on top. You just have to be ready. You just have to, excuse me. All right, I'm ready now.
Yes, it's the closest I'll ever be to a Boy Scout. Always be prepared.
Always be prepared, everyone. Very good. I love that so much. Well, I want to make sure that my listeners can find you. Where can they find you?
So the place that I'm most active is on Instagram. My Instagram name is Fancy Feast Burlesque, all one word. And there is a link in my bio where you can also order my book. So if you want more and more of me, you're in luck. There is plenty of me on the internet.
Amazing. So Instagram, Fancy Feast Burlesque. Find her there. And I want to make sure that you guys can find me as well. You can find me on pleaseme.online, and you can reach out to me there. You can also reach out to me on the OWL app and use code EH576472. And the OWL app is a place where you can give me a call and speak to me directly. And it's such an amazing app. I love sharing this with people because it really is like the cutting edge of networking. And in just the short amount of time that I've been using this app, I have made such amazing, amazing connections. It's really unbelievable. And I also want to point out that you can go to SDC.com. We talked about the ethical non-monogamous population, right? And the modern relationships. And if that's something that interests you, you can use my promo code 37340 and you can get a free trial membership to check out that website. And that website is actually where I met my partner. And yes, and I have so many friends that are on this website, and I do education, a couple of times per month on this website as well, giving free webinars. And it is a wealth of information, articles, etc. And actually, you would probably be an amazing contributor. So something that you might even want to think about, because they're always looking for really amazing contributors. And I think you'd be amazing at that. On that note, I'm going to thank you again, Fancy Feast, for being on the show today. This was so much fun, and I really enjoyed it.
I did too. Thank you so much for having me.
We'll have to do it again soon. Till next time.
Visit pleaseme.online to reach Eve, or for more information on products to increase blood flow and overall health, for her curated list of her favorite toys, and for swag that shows that you are a big fan. Please consider supporting the show.